Welcome to Globewise Entertainment, the home for hidden gems, forgotten classics, and the stories Hollywood doesn't want you to forget. Today, we're diving deep into the 13 best sci-fi films of the 1960s that everyone overlooked, movies filled with strange worlds, daring ideas, and mind-bending visions of the future that slipped past most audiences. If you love discovering underrated films, you're in the right place. And hey, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next journey into cinema's greatest hidden treasures. Now, which of these overlooked sci-fi masterpieces do you think deserves a comeback? Drop your favorite in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. 1. The Last War, 1961. In the early 1960s, Japan was still haunted by the scars of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and no film captured that collective fear of nuclear annihilation more vividly than The Last War. Directed by Shu Matsubayashi, this overlooked sci-fi gem isn't just another Cold War thriller, it's a chilling warning wrapped in a gripping family drama. The movie begins with a simple story about ordinary people, a shipyard worker, his loving family, and their dreams of a brighter future. But as global tensions rise between two superpowers clearly modeled after the United States and the Soviet Union, the narrative slowly transforms into a nightmare scenario. We watch as political games escalate into a devastating full-scale nuclear exchange. And unlike many Hollywood productions of the era, The Last War pulls no punches. The destruction scenes are harrowing, using miniatures and practical effects that rival anything Toho was doing with Godzilla at the time. What makes The Last War stand out is its emotional impact. Instead of focusing only on world leaders or military generals, the story highlights ordinary citizens who are powerless against the decisions of those in power. By the end, it's less about science fiction spectacle and more about an unshakable plea for peace, a message that resonated deeply in Japan, but somehow got overlooked by international audiences. For modern viewers, this film is both a fascinating time capsule and a powerful reminder of just how close humanity once stood to the edge of extinction. If you're a fan of Cold War-era sci-fi with a human touch, The Last War deserves a spot on your retro movie night list. 2. The Tenth Victim, 1965. Long before The Hunger Games or Battle Royale shocked audiences, Italian director Elio Petri gave the world The Tenth Victim, a razor-sharp blend of sci-fi, satire, and stylish 1960s futurism. Set in a world where war has been replaced by a government-sanctioned big hunt, people voluntarily become hunters or victims in a deadly game where survival earns fame, fortune, and freedom from taxes. The film stars Marcello Mastroianni as a weary participant and Ursula Andress as a glamorous femme fatale with a hidden agenda. But unlike typical action thrillers, this story isn't just about survival, it's a biting social commentary on consumerism, celebrity culture, and how society is entertained by violence. What really makes The Tenth Victim stand out is its swinging 60s style, psychedelic costumes, surreal architecture, and that unforgettable futuristic vibe that predicted our obsession with reality TV and televised spectacle. Though often overshadowed by Hollywood's bigger sci-fi titles of the decade, this film was way ahead of its time, inspiring countless dystopian stories that came after. If you're looking for a retro gem that's both thought-provoking and visually stunning, The Tenth Victim deserves a spot on your watch list. It's proof that even in the mid-60s, sci-fi was already questioning the dark side of entertainment and the price of survival. 3. Quartermass in the Pit, 1967. When it comes to overlooked gems of 1960s sci-fi, Quartermass and the Pit, released in the US as 5 Million Years to Earth, is a masterclass in slow-burn tension mixed with chilling cosmic horror. Directed by Roy Ward Baker and adapted from Nigel Neal's legendary BBC serial, this Hammer Films production dared to blend classic science fiction with supernatural terror, creating a unique hybrid that still feels ahead of its time. The story begins with construction workers uncovering a mysterious object buried beneath London's streets. At first, it looks like an unexploded bomb from World War II, but as scientists, led by Professor Quartermass, dig deeper, they realize it's far older, perhaps millions of years old. What they discover inside challenges everything humanity thought it knew about evolution, history, and even the origins of evil itself. What makes Quartermass and the Pit so gripping is its ability to mix grounded scientific investigation with terrifying psychological horror. Instead of relying on flashy special effects, it creates fear through atmosphere, ideas, and a sense of unease that builds until its explosive finale. Themes of alien influence on human evolution, collective memory, and mass hysteria were bold and thought-provoking for the 1960s, and still feel relevant today in an era of conspiracy theories and hidden histories. Although it didn't achieve blockbuster success, Quartermass and the Pit has become a cult favorite, influencing later works like The X-Files, Doctor Who, and even John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. For true sci-fi fans, it's an essential watch that proves the 1960s were about more than just space rockets and flashy ray guns. They were about exploring the terrifying unknown buried just beneath our feet. 4. Planet of the Vampires, 1965. Few 1960s sci-fi films are as eerie and visually unforgettable as Planet of the Vampires. Directed by Italian horror master Mario Bava, this film combines gothic atmosphere with futuristic science fiction in a way that was decades ahead of its time. The story follows two interstellar spacecrafts that answer a mysterious distress signal from an uncharted planet. But when the crews land, they discover something far more terrifying: the dead won't stay dead. An alien force begins possessing the bodies of fallen crew members, turning them into terrifying, reanimated beings. What makes this movie remarkable is not just its chilling premise but its stunning style. Bava crafted an otherworldly atmosphere using minimal budgets, thick fog, glowing lights, and haunting set designs that feel like a surreal nightmare. It's easy to see how this film influenced later sci-fi masterpieces like Alien, 1979, with its mix of cosmic dread and claustrophobic terror. Yet despite its creativity, Planet of the Vampires was overlooked by mainstream audiences. Many dismissed it as just another B-movie, but today it's celebrated as a cult classic that proves how imagination can overcome budget limits. For sci-fi fans who love retro horror, this film is a must-watch, creepy, stylish, and surprisingly influential. 5. The Man with the Xray Eyes, 1963. Roger Corman's The Man with the Xray Eyes may sound like a pulpy B-movie, but beneath its sensational title lies one of the most thought-provoking sci-fi films of the 1960s. Starring the legendary Ray Milland, the film follows Dr. James Xavier, a brilliant scientist who develops experimental eye drops that give him the ability to see beyond the normal human spectrum. At first, it feels like a miracle. He can see through walls, uncover medical truths hidden inside the body, and expose society's lies. But with each passing day, his gift becomes a curse. Xavier's vision stretches further and further, past flesh, past buildings, even past the stars themselves, until he begins to glimpse terrifying cosmic truths that no human mind was meant to comprehend. His descent into madness is both tragic and haunting, making this film much more than a cheap sci-fi flick. Corman balances psychological horror with bold ideas about science, morality, and the limits of human knowledge. Though made on a modest budget, the film's chilling final act and unforgettable twist cement its status as a cult classic. Overlooked by mainstream audiences of its time, today it's praised for daring to push sci-fi into darker, more existential territory, decades before films like Event Horizon or The Fly explored similar themes. For fans of retro sci-fi who crave more than just flying saucers and cheesy aliens, The Man with the Xray Eyes is an overlooked gem that still resonates with anyone fascinated by the dangers of seeing too much. 6. Nightcaller from Outer Space, 1965. When people talk about 1960s alien invasion movies, titles like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or The Day the Earth Caught Fire usually dominate the conversation. But Nightcaller from Outer Space, sometimes retitled The Nightcaller or Blood Beast from Outer Space, quietly carved its own eerie legacy. This British sci-fi thriller begins with a mysterious object crashing to Earth. Scientists investigate only to discover it's no ordinary meteorite. It's a signal from something out there, something watching us. Soon, London is shaken by the strange disappearance of young women answering ads for modeling work. The police, baffled, turn to scientists for help, only to uncover a terrifying truth. The women are being lured not by human predators, but by something extraterrestrial. What makes this film so fascinating is how it blends classic Cold War paranoia with a sleazy undercurrent of pulp mystery. Instead of focusing on giant monsters or space battles, it digs into humanity's fear of manipulation and exploitation from unseen powers. The creepy phone calls, the false promises, and the lurking danger gave audiences a different kind of sci-fi terror, one that felt uncomfortably close to real life. Though dismissed as B-movie schlock at its release, the film's moody black-and-white cinematography and chilling atmosphere have since earned it a cult reputation. It's less about cheap thrills and more about slow-burning dread, the kind of sci-fi that makes you question how much control we really have over our own lives. For fans of retro sci-fi who want something grittier, darker, and overlooked by mainstream audiences, Nightcaller from Outer Space is a must-watch gem. It proves that 1960s sci-fi wasn't just about flashy effects, it was also about telling unsettling stories that still resonate today. 7 Seconds, 1966. John Frankenheimer's Seconds is one of the most unsettling sci-fi films of the 1960s, a hidden gem that blends psychological horror with futuristic science fiction. The movie follows a middle-aged man dissatisfied with his life, who undergoes an experimental procedure offered by a mysterious company. For the right price, they'll give you a brand new identity, complete with a younger, surgically altered body and a fabricated past. It's the ultimate fantasy, starting life over. But when Rock Hudson steps into the role of this reborn man, the dream quickly spirals into a nightmare. Seconds explores terrifying themes of identity, regret, and the cost of chasing perfection. It dares to ask, if you could erase your old self, would happiness really follow, or would the past haunt you forever? What makes Seconds so overlooked is its daring ahead of its time filmmaking. Frankenheimer uses haunting cinematography, distorted camera angles, and eerie atmosphere that feel more like modern psychological thrillers than a 1960s sci-fi. At its release, the movie was misunderstood and even rejected by audiences, but today, it's celebrated as a cult classic, influencing everything from Black Mirror to modern body swap and identity horror films. If you're a fan of disturbing sci-fi that digs into the human condition, Seconds is a must-watch, and proof that some of the most powerful stories in cinema come from movies that were ignored in their own time. 8. Robinson Crusoe on Mars, 1964. When you hear the title Robinson Crusoe on Mars, it might sound like a cheesy sci-fi B-movie gimmick. But don't let the name fool you. This 1964 classic is one of the most surprisingly ambitious science fiction films of its decade. Directed by Byron Haskin, the same man behind the iconic War of the Worlds, 1953, this movie takes Daniel Defoe's 18th-century survival tale and reimagines it in the hostile, alien landscape of Mars. The story follows astronaut Kit Draper, played by Paul Mantee, who crash lands on the Red Planet after a mission gone wrong. Alone, with only limited oxygen, scarce food supplies, and a loyal monkey named Mona, Draper faces the ultimate test of human resilience. What makes this film remarkable isn't flashy space battles or alien monsters. It's the raw struggle for survival in an environment that feels both barren and terrifyingly real. Shot in the striking deserts of Death Valley and California's Red Rock Canyon, the movie gave audiences some of the most atmospheric and convincing Mars landscapes of the 1960s, long before modern CGI existed. The film cleverly mixes practical science with speculative imagination, exploring oxygen regeneration, water scarcity, and even extraterrestrial slavery through the character of Friday, a fugitive alien who joins Draper in his fight to stay alive. What makes Robinson Crusoe on Mars so overlooked is that it was overshadowed by bigger sci-fi epics of the decade like 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968. Yet, for its time, the film blended adventure, survival, and social allegory in a way that was years ahead of its peers. Even NASA scientists have praised its semi-realistic take on space survival, making it a hidden gem for true sci-fi fans. Today, it stands as more than just a cult classic. It's a thoughtful piece of speculative cinema that captures the loneliness, danger, and wonder of outer space. If you've never seen it, this is one 1960s sci-fi adventure that deserves a second life on your retro movie night list. 9. The Human Vapor, 1960. In the golden age of Japanese sci-fi cinema, Toho Studios gave us giant monsters like Godzilla and Mothra. But in 1960, they released something far stranger, more intimate, and deeply unsettling, The Human Vapor. Unlike the rampaging kaiju, this film tells the story of a man transformed into a deadly, almost supernatural being, not by cosmic accident, but through the hubris of science gone too far. The movie follows Mizuno, a man subjected to an experimental gas transformation procedure that leaves him with a terrifying ability. He can turn his body into vapor and drift through the air like a living mist. At first, this power seems miraculous, but soon it reveals its darker side. Mizuno uses his vaporous form to commit robberies, murders, and acts of vengeance, leaving no trace behind except fear and death. What makes the human vapor so fascinating is that it's not just about spectacle, it's about tragedy. Mizuno isn't a cackling villain. He's a man tormented by his gift, a person who desperately wants love and acceptance but becomes a prisoner of his monstrous abilities. His doomed romance with a struggling dancer adds an emotional weight rarely seen in sci-fi of the time. You find yourself sympathizing with him even as he descends deeper into violence. Visually, the film was ahead of its time. The special effects, showing Mizuno dissolving into smoke and reforming in chilling ways, were revolutionary in 1960.
That menaces the world.
While today's CGI has made such
like an inhuman
transformations
monster?
commonplace, back then, it was pure movie magic, blending ingenuity with haunting atmosphere. Yet despite its innovative story and emotional core, The Human Vapor was largely overlooked outside Japan. Overshadowed by Godzilla's global fame, this film remained a hidden gem, quietly influencing the darker side of sci-fi and horror for decades. Its themes of science corrupting humanity, the danger of unchecked experiments, and the loneliness of power would echo later in movies like The Fly and even Hollow Man. For fans of retro sci-fi, The Human Vapor is more than just a curiosity. It's a moody, emotional masterpiece that proves 1960s cinema could be both imaginative and deeply human. If you're searching for a sci-fi film that combines eerie visuals with heart-wrenching storytelling, this one deserves a spot on your retro watch list. 10. The Day the Earth Caught Fire, 1961. In 1961, British cinema delivered a powerful, thought-provoking gem with The Day the Earth Caught Fire, a film that has remained criminally overlooked despite its bold vision and chilling relevance. Unlike the flashy sci-fi blockbusters of the era, this movie dared to ground its story in gritty realism, blending science fiction with journalistic drama in a way that felt eerily believable. The plot revolves around the aftermath of simultaneous nuclear tests conducted by the United States and the Soviet Union. These blasts, instead of merely escalating Cold War tensions, knock the Earth off its axis and send it spiraling closer to the Sun. The consequences? Rising global temperatures, droughts, environmental collapse, and the terrifying possibility that humanity may have sealed its own doom. What makes The Day the Earth Caught Fire stand out is its style. Shot in stark black and white with sepia-tinted sequences, the film captures both the bleakness of a dying planet and the chaos inside a bustling London newsroom. Rather than focusing on flashy special effects, it zeroes in on the human side of the disaster. Journalists struggling to make sense of events, citizens panicking, and governments scrambling to hide the truth. At its heart is the character of Peter Stenning, a cynical reporter whose personal struggles mirror the chaos of the world around him. Through his eyes, audiences experience not just the collapse of the Earth's climate, but also the collapse of trust in authority. The film's ending remains one of the most haunting in science fiction history, deliberately ambiguous, leaving viewers uncertain whether Earth will be saved or destroyed. For its time, this was groundbreaking. The Day the Earth Caught Fire wasn't just another sci-fi movie, it was a social warning wrapped in a gripping story. In an age defined by the threat of nuclear annihilation, it dared to ask, what if humanity's pursuit of power destroyed the very planet we depend on? Today, the movie feels almost prophetic. With modern concerns about climate change and environmental collapse, its message resonates louder than ever. While it never gained the blockbuster fame of Hollywood's space adventures, it has earned cult status among serious sci-fi fans who appreciate intelligent, thought-provoking storytelling. If you're searching for a forgotten 1960s gem that blends suspense, political commentary, and apocalyptic dread, The Day the Earth Caught Fire deserves a spot on your retro movie list. It's not just a film, it's a warning from the past that still feels like it's written for our future. 11. The Time Travelers, 1964. If you're a fan of clever, low-budget sci-fi that punches way above its weight, The Time Travelers from 1964 is a hidden gem you simply can't ignore. Directed by I.B. Melchior, the same visionary behind Robinson Crusoe on Mars, this film takes a modest budget and transforms it into a truly fascinating piece of speculative storytelling. The movie begins with a group of scientists experimenting with a time-viewing screen. Think of it as an early sci-fi version of a time machine television. But things go haywire, and instead of simply observing the future, they accidentally step through the screen and find themselves trapped hundreds of years ahead. What they discover is both thrilling and unsettling. A future Earth devastated by nuclear war, populated by mutants, and one of the earliest depictions of a domed city where humanity struggles to survive. What makes The Time Travelers stand out isn't just its premise, but its ambitious practical effects and ahead-of-its-time concepts. The movie showcases humanoid androids being assembled on screen in a chillingly mechanical fashion, which influenced later films like Westworld and even The Terminator. The bleak cyclical ending, without giving too much away, leaves viewers questioning fate, free will, and whether humanity is doomed to repeat its mistakes. Though overshadowed by bigger budget hits like Fantastic Voyage and 2001, A Space Odyssey, The Time Travelers has earned a cult following for its ingenuity. It's a perfect example of how 1960s sci-fi wasn't just about aliens and space battles, but also about grappling with humanity's future in the atomic age. For retro movie lovers today, it's more than just entertainment, it's a time capsule of Cold War anxieties, mixed with bold creativity that paved the way for modern sci-fi storytelling. 12. First Men in the Moon, 1964. Released in 1964 and based on H.G. Wells' classic novel, First Men in the Moon is one of those forgotten gems of British sci-fi cinema that blends Victorian-era adventure with futuristic imagination. Unlike the Cold War space race films dominating Hollywood at the time, this movie took audiences on a whimsical yet thrilling journey to the moon decades before Neil Armstrong would actually set foot there. The story begins in the late 19th century, when an eccentric scientist, Professor Caver, invents a substance called caverite, a material that can negate gravity itself. Along with his adventurous companion Bedford and a spirited young woman, they embark on a fantastical voyage to the moon. But when they arrive, they discover something startling. The moon isn't a dead, empty rock. Instead, it's home to an advanced underground civilization of insect-like creatures known as the Selenites. What makes this film stand out is the extraordinary stop-motion special effects by the legendary Ray Harryhausen, the same genius behind Jason and the Argonauts. His Selenites and massive moon monsters gave the movie a surreal, almost otherworldly texture that still fascinates fans of practical effects today. While the movie does carry a playful, almost whimsical tone, it also sneaks in a powerful commentary about human ambition, colonialism, and the consequences of unchecked exploration. The clash between humans and the Selenites mirrors the imperial mindset of the Victorian Age, making it a lot deeper than your typical Saturday matinee space adventure. Unfortunately, despite its imaginative premise and Harryhausen's signature artistry, First Men in the Moon was overshadowed by flashier big-budget films of its era. Many critics dismissed it as childish fantasy, and it struggled to find an audience during the height of the real-life Apollo missions. But looking back today, it feels ahead of its time, a clever mix of steampunk adventure and cosmic wonder that set the stage for later sci-fi epics exploring alien civilizations. For retro sci-fi lovers, this film is a true time capsule blending the curiosity of the Victorian era, the optimism of the 1960s space race, and the magic of Harryhausen's groundbreaking visual artistry. If you've overlooked it, you're missing out on a unique cinematic journey that's both charming and thought-provoking. 13. The Creation of the Humanoids, 1962. Now here's a film that quietly crept onto the sci-fi landscape and left a surprisingly deep mark, The Creation of the Humanoids from 1962. At first glance, it looks like just another low-budget B-movie with stiff performances and static sets. But dig deeper, and you'll find one of the most thought-provoking science fiction stories of the decade, so much so that even Andy Warhol once called it his favorite film. Set in a bleak post-apocalyptic world, humanity is barely clinging on after nuclear war has ravaged the planet. To survive, humans rely on humanoids, robots designed to look eerily similar to their creators. But here's the kicker. As these machines become more advanced and more human-like, they raise unsettling questions about identity, free will, and what it really means to be alive. The drama comes from a secret resistance movement called the Order of Flesh and Blood, a group of humans who fear the robots are taking over society. They fight to preserve what's left of real humanity, but the twist is that the line between human and machine has already blurred far more than anyone realizes. What makes The Creation of the Humanoids so powerful isn't flashy effects or alien invasions, it's its bold philosophical core. It dared to tackle questions of race, identity, and social integration, cleverly disguising these themes through the lens of robots and humans. Think of it as a kind of proto-Blade Runner made 20 years earlier, on a shoestring budget. While critics at the time largely dismissed it, modern audiences can see how groundbreaking it really was. The film predicted debates about artificial intelligence, transhumanism, and even cultural assimilation decades before they became mainstream. And though it moves at a slow, stage play pace, that deliberate style gives it a strange, hypnotic atmosphere, one that lingers with you long after the credits roll. Today, The Creation of the Humanoids deserves to be celebrated as one of the 1960s most underrated sci-fi gems, a low-budget curiosity that ended up asking the biggest questions of all. And there you have it, 13 of the most overlooked sci-fi films of the 1960s, each one proving that you don't need a massive budget to explore big ideas about the future, humanity, and the unknown. These hidden gems remind us why classic cinema still matters today. If you enjoyed this trip through retro sci-fi, don't forget to subscribe to Globewise Entertainment for more forgotten treasures, Hollywood secrets, and deep dives into film history. Now it's your turn. Which of these 1960s sci-fi films blew your mind the most? Drop your pick in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Until next time, this is Globewise Entertainment, keeping the past alive one movie at a time.